everyone. Welcome to the third edition of Guru Mantra podcast. And here is your Guru Charan Kumar. Today we have a student guest speaker, Mauli Sood, who scored 37 points in the final IB exam. Mauli was a Pathways World School Gurugram Clicking Club head also for the year 2022-23. Mauli is an ambitious girl, someone who has a strong desire to achieve success by meeting her goals in the DP. And she is a compassionate student who can both feel and express the sympathy for others. I can say with clear words that she can handle any situation with maturity. Mauli, welcome to the Guru Mantra podcast, and please introduce yourself with our audience.
Hi everyone, my name is Mauli Sood and I was a student at Pathways World School Aravali. I scored 37 points in IB and for ESS I got a 7. I will be attending University of British Columbia this year and that's in Canada. Besides that, I love dancing and I have a passion for making candles and other crafts and I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Mauli, we will start our first series of questions with ESS paper 1. Can you tell what key skill did you develop or enhance while preparing for the paper 1? And how did they contribute, that particular skill contribute your success in the paper 1?
For paper 1, the most important aspect is understanding the resource booklet. And to enhance my understanding capability, I went through all the articles and resources my teachers shared. And it's very important that you have a strong understanding of the article and every line in it and inculcate those responses in your answers. And that did help me a lot. Reading articles helped me a lot.
That's a brilliant, yes. Mauli always read a lot of articles. Now, Mauli, in paper 1, it is essential to analysis and interpret the data provided in the data booklet. Can you tell how did you effectively use the data booklet during the examination? Could you provide some example how would it enhance your answer to get a 7?
Before starting to read the question paper, I used to go through the data booklet so I know what point is mentioned where in the data booklet, because not everything is given in an order. It's always going back and forth. So it's important that you read the data booklet first instead of hopping on to the questions and then trying to find the answer in the resource booklet. And in the examinations, I incorporated the same practice. I went through the data booklet first and then the question paper. That really helps.
Oh, that's a very brilliant one. Only I have given the past paper to our entire batch. You are the one of the few students use the past paper booklet in ESS effectively. Now, can you tell what are the benefits of using the past paper to study the IB ESS paper 1? And how can students make the most use this past paper as a best resource?
If you're just going through the past paper on your own and not getting it corrected from your teacher, there's not really a lot of use you're putting into it. It's very important that you understand where are you lagging and you make the best use of the feedback given to you. You should also be conscious that whenever something goes wrong in the past paper, you make sure that you study that very concept before appearing for the final examinations. And once you go through the past paper booklet for paper 1 especially, you will know that there's a trend of answering the questions and there's a trend that IB follows while asking the questions as well. So if you're familiar with the trend, you'll be able to finish your paper in like 50 minutes and have that revision buffer for yourself.
Brilliant. So writing precise and accurate terms is essential for scoring high marks in the paper 1. I still remember you sit in the class, you write each and every notes in the classroom. Can you tell what advice can you offer your students on how to craft that perfect term that demonstrate a strong understanding of the ESS paper 1 marks?
When you're going through your notes, just be conscious enough and sit with a highlighter and you can highlight every key term that is important while you read. And when you're reading your data booklet, incorporate the same practice there. Now, I know we can't use highlighters during the examination, but using a soft pencil is always advisable. While you underline, you always click with certain terms that you had read before, and you can connect it to the information given in the booklet, and that helps you just come to the point and give your answer in a concise manner while saving time and giving most important points first.
Okay. Only now we are moving to some of the questions related to the paper 2, which is a very difficult part for the most of the ESS student. Can you tell what factor should be considered when selecting essay question in paper 2, especially 9-mark question? How a student can ensure a well-rounded coverage of the syllabus for paper 2 to writing and perfect 9-mark question? How you did it?
For 9-marker, the most important thing is you are familiar with certain case studies. Now, it gets a little extensive if you consider case studies for every unit. So it's beneficial that if you go through the articles provided on the internet, or if your teacher shares with them, so that you have a connection between the 9-marker question being asked and you have a case study in hand for it already. For 9-marker, what I did personally was start off with a framework, make a rough note of how was I going to frame my response, make short bullet points, and then elaborate on them so it makes your answer a little more wholesome. And you can add terminology right next to your rough work so that you're not missing out on any term while you're thinking and writing in a flow.
Brilliant. Now, Mauli, can you tell what role did your classroom notes play in your studying for the ESS paper 2? How did you organize and utilize your notes effectively, which is related to the paper 1?
It is very important that you take note of everything that's being taught in class, because there's so much things the book cannot make you understand unless someone orally has explained them to you and you've put it down in your own words. It is very important. Now, I had a lot of classmates who would just sit and go through the book and study from it. And I realized that they weren't very well versed with the syllabus or the topic in particular if they hadn't paid attention in class and written down their understanding in their own words. So for paper 2, I would advise everyone that whatever is being taught in class, instead of just copying down from the blackboard or going through your textbook and making your short notes, you should rather take up a concept and try to write down what is your understanding of it, and maybe later go through the book and just put down whatever points have been left out, or ask your teacher for guidance. I'm sure they'll be there to help you through every step, but it's very important that you write your own understanding so it sticks with you.
That's a brilliant. Listeners, please note, you have to really learn a lot of skill from the Mauli. One of the important skill is classroom notes. I still remember how classroom notes is a fantastic notes. It's equal to an iPad notes. Even people doing an iPad, they cannot also bring that kind of fantastic, colorful notes. So now, Mauli, I have seen a lot of skill during the 2 years in developing in the ESS paper 2. Writing the answer, giving to my feedback, each and every notes. So I can list out you all the skill, how the skill help you to achieve the 7 in ESS. Now, can you tell what skill did you find the most important develop in order to excel in paper 2?
Personally, for me, the skill I had to work on the most to excel in paper 2 was time management. After I did that, it was most important that I went through the terminology, because for 9 markers and all the essay question, they're so broad. They're more like TOK questions. So it's very important that you stick to what's being asked and do not cook up stories around the topic. So it's very important that you have a breakdown of the terminology. So having a concept and having what terminology would I need to answer that particular concept, that is something that I inculcated in my notes, and that helped me a lot in paper 2 because I was very concise, to the point, and had the answers similar to that were mentioned in the marking scheme.
Yes, I have seen this one in 2 years with you, Mauli. So you said time management. So I know time management is crucial for IBDP. So can you tell what advice you give for your DP1, 2 students effectively managing their time, especially paper 2? Because most of the students always struggle for a paper 2 hours. There are some students will take 1 hour 45 minutes to write the essay question. So what advice would you give for the DP students to use the manage their time during the paper 2?
During the first 5 reading minutes, it's very important that you go through the essay questions and mark the ones which you are well versed with and the ones you're going to answer, so that you do not waste time later on while writing the examination on choosing which one do you want to respond to. What I did was I used to start with the 4 markers first, get done with those in 20-minute stops. How much ever you written, that's fine. You can always come back to it later, but missing out on the other questions with the data questions, it's not worth it. So you first finish your 4 markers, the short answers, and then you move on to the other questions, and you can always come back to them later. Besides that, after you're done with your 9 marker, the first one, it's important that you stop yourself in 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, how much ever you've written, that's fine. Move on to the next 9 marker, because you can not get more than 9 marks in one question, but losing out those 9 marks in the other question, that's not very that's not a very smart thing to do. So even if you score a 5 and a 6 in the other question, that's perfectly fine. That gives you a lot more grades. So just time yourself, and you need to stop after a particular time, even if you're not done with it, and move on to the next part and come back to that particular question if you have time at the end.
Wow, brilliant. Now, Mauli, we are going to questions related to the IA. I know you IA one of the best IA I have charactered in my career. Listener, please note, I have to say this particular thing. I have been teaching 18 years, but there are only few students have submitted IA above my knowledge. I still remember after Mauli submitted the first draft, it took me at least 1 month to understand what is a topic. I gave to my parallel teacher, one of the other teachers outside India, and they all done it. Fantastic IA. So your IA journey is very important, I feel, Mauli. Now, can you tell how Guru Sir's feedback and ESS Guru Mantra website help you achieve ESS IA 7?
Guru's feedback was always very extensive, and whatever factor I was missing, sir would get it on point. I remember going to him and being like, "Sir, there is something missing, but I don't know what." And he would just go through it, and he would know what exactly needs to be there, where does it need to be there. And for ESS Guru Mantra website, it was very helpful for having reference to, because there's not a lot of well marked essays out there on the internet. And the website has everything in one place. So you do not have to waste time surfing through the internet, finding some resource that's helpful or makes sense to you. So everything there was marked, the IS were marked according to the bands, and whatever was missing, the feedback was right next to it. So I knew that this is something I do not have to forget in my IA and incorporate intentionally. And the website overall just had the rubrics which made it easier for me to formulate my IA in a more cohesive way.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mauli. Now, could you discuss the most challenging part of USSIA and how did you overcome it? I know you must have faced a lot of challenges because your research question is unique, your topic is unique. So, what is the most challenging part of your IA and how did you overcome it?
There wasn't something very like challenging, because there were always a lot of resources and help that was offered to me. But if there was something, it was probably how did I incorporate my terminology and the ESS concepts into my IA, because I started to bend a little towards biology and physics towards the end. So staying on track with the terminology and connecting it to my research question again and again was a challenging part for me, because I kept going beyond the word count. So that was one challenge, and to overcome it, I started to sit with my textbook and highlight the terms which made sense in context to my IA, and then incorporate them in places where they would have a more meaningful outcome.
So, Mauli, could you share the importance of the teacher's feedback during the IA process and how it has improved? I'm not talking only ESS, generally in IA process, how the teacher's feedback is really important to improve your work.
The teacher has been reading so many IAs throughout their career that a single glance at our work can tell them what is missing and how much is this work going to score. So if you're not taking your teacher's feedback seriously and considering like a criticism, it would not help you, because at the end of the day, your teacher is the one going to be marking it. And if they're telling you something that it's missing or it needs to be improved, that is something you should take very constructively and not take it to your heart that the teacher doesn't like me. So it's very important that you go to your teacher time and again and take their feedback, because they won't turn you away, they'll only help you. And it really improves your work from maybe a 4 or a 5 to a straight 7.
Oh, that's an important tips for each and everyone. Mauli, I know you have used primary data on your IA. So when using the primary research for the IA, what are some strategies to ensure the validity and the reliability of collecting the data? Because many students they struggle to ensure the validity and the reliability of data collected. Can you share your experience?
Before going out in the field and starting to conduct your primary research, it is important that you go through the steps that you're going to follow with your teacher or your supervisor. So if there's anything that you need to be cautious about, they can inform you about it well before time. And before you go out in the field, it's important that you are aware that you're not supposed to harm the surroundings. You are in compliance with the IB regulations. Besides that, it's very important that if you're doing an experiment, you at least repeat the process 3 times so that there's no room for error and you have an average of the readings and your data gets a little more reliable. And it's important that you also refer to some other studies so that you know what are the factors, the control variables, uncontrollable variables that would affect your IA, and how can you manipulate them effectively for your research to be more understandable by everyone around you.
Brilliant. So, Mauli, now can you walk us through your planning process from the initial stage to the final draft of your ESS IA?
Before you start to frame your final research question, it is important that you have an outline of what you're going to put in there and you start to read around it. It's not important the first question that comes up to your mind is going to be the final one. So before you start framing your research question, it's important that you know what is happening in your surroundings, what's the environment going around like, what are the new challenges coming up, and possibly find a solution to that, or maybe a solution, maybe come up with a problem that has not been addressed and you start a conversation. After that process, it's important you sit down with your teacher, make an outline of how are you going to proceed with your IA, have resources to read through, consult different people, and if it's a primary research, you should be cautious of how are you going to manipulate the environment and how are you going to perform your experiment so that it's in a safe zone. If you're considering a secondary research, you should be cautious that all your resources and websites are credible enough. You're not taking something off the internet that's not been authenticized. For the final stages, I would suggest everyone that you take out a printout of your IA, have it in hard copy, and besides that, you should also have a printout of your subject guide, the rubrics which confirms us about the IA's marking bands. So after you're reading your IA, you can basically just put a tick mark next to every concept that you've covered so that it gives you a wholesome picture of the whole thing. And you're 100% sure you've not missed out on anything that would lose you grades. And when you're doing that, you could also sit beside your teacher and have their feedback, an extensive written feedback, so that you're on the same page as your teacher and you do not leave any possibility of you losing out any mark because of a silly mistake.
This is a top class advice for all the ESS students. Mauli, I have a last two questions, a general question. Listeners, please note, Mauli, when she graduated, she got the Best ESS Student Award. For the fourth semester, Mauli Sood was continuously getting each semester in ESS 7777. And I had a 44 students in her batch. Out of 44, she was the only student who was constantly getting the 7. That shows our dedication, that shows her hard work. And that is the reason I'm asking this question, Mauli. Can you tell what is the one factor that makes studying ESS is unique and interesting when compared to the other DP subjects?
For me, ESS is a subject that is not confined within 4 walls. There is so much to explore. There is so much beyond the textbook. There is so much beyond what's being taught in the classroom. And that's what it made interesting for me. I wanted to go back to my dorm. I was a boarder, so I wanted to go back to my dorm and study and see videos more about the topic that was being taught in class, because there was just so much to learn from it. It's an open-ended subject. There is so much room for improvement. There is just so much information out there that you just want to grasp. And for me personally, I love the topic of climate change and global warming, and I want to be one of the people who give a lot to the world so that it becomes a better place for all of us. And ESS gave me that opportunity. For my
Brilliant.
IA also, I addressed a similar issue. And in my university too, I will be studying climate change for quite a bit. So that is something ESS fosters in you. It fosters a new human being in you, the one who cares about the environment.
I'm damn sure definitely you will give lot of to the environmental world. Mauli, my last thing is, listeners, please note Mauli Sood as own startup. She has her own startup and she is doing it brilliantly in that own startup. So, Mauli Sood, can you tell to listeners about your own startup, what you are doing? And because I have a listeners from all over the world, if they want to contact you, how they can contact you?
Thank you so much. I started my own small candle making business last year when I was in DP1. I make handmade candles. They are all scented and paraben free. Paraben is a very toxic gas which, when inhaled by humans, can deteriorate your health in the long run. So, all my candles are paraben free. Besides that, I also make customized stickers. And it would be really great if all of you could just drop in on my website and check out the products and possibly buy a few. You can reach out to me at www.kiwie.shop.
Brilliant. Listeners, all this one, it will be in the description. You can log in to the description and you can get all the information. Mauli, it's a brilliant conversation with you about your success, all your experience. Will be a lesson for many DP students and especially ESS students who want to achieve the high grades like you. Mauli, your final words before we end.
IB is a journey in its whole, and it's important you take the full out of it. You make friends, you make mistake, overcome the challenges, try something new. Just don't be a bookworm and don't keep your head down. Always aim for the high and you'll be good to go.
Thank you for listening to the Guru Mantra podcast with your host, Guru Charan Kumar. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into all the tips and tricks about the ESS. If you enjoyed this episode, then like the podcast, please share with others and post it on the social media or leave the rate and the review. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, Mauli.
Thank you, sir.